Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Jenna Flanagan. Are doctors to blame for the opioid crisis? Ask a majority of New Yorkers, and they'd say yes, according to findings in a recent survey conducted by Siena College. Others say it's the drug manufacturers and distributors. And while many fingers can be pointed at various entities, what is certain and sad that according to this new survey, over half of all New Yorkers have felt the impact of the opioid epidemic in some way. One of the journalists reporting from the front lines of this battle is Times Union reporter Bethany Bump, who joins us now with details on Prescription for Progress. Bethany, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So when it comes to the origin of whose fault is this opioid crisis, what has your reporting led you to understand?
According to this Siena College survey that was conducted, a large number of New Yorkers believe that doctors really are the ones to blame here for overprescribing opioid pain pills. Somebody goes in for a broken foot or to get their wisdom teeth out, and they leave with a bottle of, say 60 hydrocodone. So they feel that doctors in particular have been sort of cavalier, but if you were to actually talk to physicians and other people on the front lines of this, they say there's a lot of factors at play here. What we saw in like the late 80s and early 90s was this push from government, from accrediting agencies to sort of push hospitals to start addressing pain as what they say is the fifth vital sign. And so these hospitals were rated according to patient satisfaction. Well, the best way to make a patient satisfied was to give them the medication to deal with their pain. And so, you really heard from physicians saying it's not all of our fault. And we also saw when governments started to realize that there was a large number of people becoming addicted to these pain pills, they started to crack down on the prescription of them. And once they did that, it really started to fuel this black market. A lot of people had addictions to these pills and can no longer get them at the doctor's office. And so they turned to the streets. And, we obviously saw that drug dealers were more than happy to meet that demand.
A lot of people have been critical of the fact that the pharmaceutical industry has such a strong lobbying front that it's made it very difficult for anything to happen at the federal level. What has your reporting shown you of the role that the pharmaceutical industry is playing in this? Because these pills don't come from nowhere. They don't grow.
So a lot of doctors had some idea that these drugs could be addictive, but they didn't know at what quantity. And a lot of people have said, this is on the drug manufacturers. They knew that these drugs had addictive qualities, but they were out to make a buck. And so they were really incentivizing doctors to overprescribe them. At the end of February of this year, nearly 500 counties and 300 cities and towns have actually filed a lawsuit against these drug companies or talked about filing a lawsuit against them. We've seen that here in New York. The state itself has joined on to these lawsuits, as have New York City and a bunch of counties here in the capital region.
When you mentioned the black market and that a lot of the drugs were popping up there when people can no longer get them prescribed by their doctors, what's the source of the drugs on the black market?
Initially, what we had seen as the prescription drugs were being cut off was a flooding of heroin on the market. Now, heroin was kind of a drug from decades past, but it surged again after these prescription drugs were increasingly being monitored and cut down. What is concerning people in the field right now is that we are seeing not just heroin, but all kinds of street drugs. We are seeing homemade Xanax. We are seeing cocaine being increasingly laced with fentanyl, which is a very powerful opiate. It's prescribed typically to cancer patients at the end of their life to treat extreme pain. And it's about 50 times stronger than heroin. And this fentanyl is frequently coming from China, and it's already in the drug supply. And a lot of the dealers here don't even know that it's in the supply.
Is there anything else that you can tell us about what's being done to try to address some of this?
Actually, here in the capital region, we do have quite a few examples. We have a local hospital that sort of recognized, like, when someone goes to the emergency room and they're in withdrawal from opioid medication, they are frequently getting turned away. And the reason for this is because they're not at risk of dying like someone with an alcohol addiction or someone who's addicted to benzodiazepine. they actually won't die from their withdrawal. They'll feel like they're going to die, but they won't. And so a lot of emergency room detox beds are prioritized for people who actually will die. And so what happens in that moment is that person who is terrified of their withdrawal pains and not getting help at the hospital, at the emergency room, is going back out onto the street and using their drugs because they're terrified of their pain. And so we had one local hospital, St. Peter's, here in Albany. They recently opened several walk-in clinics at various locations around the region. And what happens is if someone's turned away from the emergency room, they'll be referred to these clinics, and right away they will get dosed with buprenorphine, which is goes by the name Suboxone, and that will treat the cravings that they have for the drug. It'll eliminate their withdrawal pain, and they can stay on that drug until they move up on a waiting list for an actual detox or rehab bed.
Well, Bethany, I want to thank you so much for your reporting. Prescription for Progress, I believe, is the name of the series. And we will definitely be following your work as this continues to unfold in New York, but also, of course, across the country.
Thank you so much.